All right. Taylor Carney, the Redneck Outdoor Channel, back again. Redneck Outdoor Channel podcast here. And we got us a good topic today. Something that's very important we want to talk about. And it's packs of wild dogs that are controlling most of our nation's major cities.
I'm out on that one.
I'm just fooling with you.
It's going to be a one-man show.
I think that's off of Talladega Nights. It says that packs of wild dogs that are controlling most of our nation. Anyhow.
Heck yeah.
Okay, now we're going to talk about shed hunting today. And on my right here,
I'm Derek Compton.
I'm Derek Compton.
Compton Country Living. That's a new channel I guess we got up. Finally got some wings.
Yep.
I don't know, just enough wings to fall out of the nest, I think.
Right on, right on. And then
And
on
I'm
the
old
left,
Lefty.
got old Lefty.
On the right.
Oh, Paul. Well, the viewers left. Or
Yep.
the listeners left.
Yeah.
All right, we got Lefty. He's all right, though. But Dad, old Lefty there, he's been shed hunting for many a years.
Yeah, I have. I've
What-
found quite a few.
What year do you think you found your first shed, if you had to guess?
Oh, probably. Oh gosh, it's been
Early 2000s or
probably
late?
around about that. Probably been 20, 25 years ago. So probably. Yeah, when I really first started kind of shed hunting.
So first time you went shed hunting, went looking for them, I was unborn or just a baby probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I didn't start
Wee
looking to them
lad.
until I stumbled onto, like my first set. I stumbled onto them and like, oh wow, look at this. And, okay, and you start looking. We just start looking for sheds.
Did you know about how deer shed antlers at the time, or was it just
Yeah,
like what the heck? What the heck's going on here?
Yeah, I did. I knew that they shed their antlers. I
Yeah.
knew that.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Once I found that first set.
Well, obviously you were a hunter, and, so
Yeah.
because I guess some people probably don't know about shed antlers and kind of how that works, and so we'll kind of explain that real quick. I reckon that all your deer, all antlered animals, the difference in an antler and a horn is that, well, it's made of different material, but an antler is shed that it falls off every year and regrows, and so it's counting caribou, moose, elk, whitetail. A pronghorn's kind of its own thing. Pronghorn's the only horned animal that sheds it. It sheds a sheath, which is, it's a weird thing too that it's kind of in its own category. But anyhow, so particularly in whitetails, we'll talk about them because that's what we're shed antler hunting for. Is they shed their antlers in the late winter, early spring, kind of in that area around here. They might start shedding in December. You get the early drops in December, and then they'll shed plumb up into April and maybe even might be May before the last ones fall off, I think. And then they start regrowing in the summertime, and that's when they're in velvet and their antlers are kind of soft and fuzzy looking as they're growing their antlers, and it's when they have veins going through, pumping blood through them, and it's a tissue. It's like a skin kind of growing on there. And they shed their velvet. Here in Oklahoma, they shed in September. Pretty much always by September. Some of them start shedding in August and September, and then they're pretty much all shed out by their velvet's all shed off of them before October, before hunting season. And that's when they're hard horned. That's when you see them walking around them old, war hammers and battle axes and stuff on their head, and And what causes them to go hard antlered is a spike in testosterone, which is typically right before October. Their testosterone starts to climb. It's all controlled. The antlers are all controlled by testosterone. So their testosterone starts to really start increasing, and it causes their antlers to harden and the velvet, which is that fuzzy skin, to fall off. And they'll kind of rub it off, and they even eat that velvet's weird deal. They kind of eat that though, but then all throughout October, their testosterone continues to climb until it's peaked out around the beginning of November, and that's when they're rutting and they chasing and they lose a bunch of weight and go into the winter, and their testosterone drops off and their testosterone levels are real low, and then that's what causes the antlers to fall off, as a big decrease in testosterone there. They lose a lot of muscle mass, and it all has to do with that pedicle there. Now you have the base of your antler, and you have what's called the burr, and that's kind of what exactly looks like a burr around the base of the antler. And then below the burr, the white, is the pedicle, and that's where the antler meets the skull. You got your pedicle. And the pedicle is a funny kind of bone material that it, I guess, kind of just dissolves whenever their testosterone drops off, and that's when they shed. And then from that pedicle grows the new rack. Late spring, early summers when it starts to grow back again. That's the basis of a deer shedding antlers in a nutshell there. A lot of people probably know that, but give a quick rundown for anybody that don't. But anyhow, we like to go looking for them, and
Yeah, it just ain't easy.
no,
You got to put a lot of effort in it.
right. We keep a count. We kind of have between me and Dad and
Yeah, the last few
Trey.
years we've kind of kept a count on how many we find, and
friendly competition, you know.
yeah, and it's all pretty much public land shed hunting,
Yeah.
which
The past few years have been 100%
yeah,
public land. We didn't. This year we got some plans of looking on a little bitty piece of private that we've got, but
a guy needs to hit the public land early and often. Even the same places you've been earlier, hit them often, because if you don't,
Yeah.
someone else is going to find them.
yeah. Well, that's kind of a big thing there, is how early do you get out? Because you can push them out of that area. If before they're shed, you can push them out of there.
On public land, I probably wouldn't worry so much about it. If you had your own private land, you got some decent deer on camera, you're watching, I'd stay out of there till I was pretty certain that they've dropped them.
If you're on private, you could run cameras and tell. Okay, yeah, that's a shed buck. He's got big red circles on his head, and then go check. You know, but like you said, on public, we start looking really January 16th. That's because January 15th is the last day of bow season. We don't really want to walk under somebody. So we start looking right after deer season, because there's so much land. You can walk for miles and miles every Saturday and never hit the same spot twice. So we start looking pretty early on like that. Plumb into about the beginning of April, and then that's when it greens up too much that
Yeah, there's kind of a fine line there where you can really possibly find several, and the grass gets too green and you won't hardly find them, and if you go too early, you're not going to find them. So it's kind of there's a little window there that it's the best,
right.
and that's somewhere around about spring break, real close to spring break's what I think. But
When spring break? What?
March, probably second week in March.
Second week of March, around about spring break. Yeah, I think you probably got a pretty good percentage of them shed by then.
Yeah.
I like to think that the reason we miss so many is there's a pretty good percentage of bucks that don't shed until after that green up, after turkey season. I've seen a lot of bucks carrying well into turkey season. You know, late April, when we've done gave up on looking. It's, you know, we're picking ticks at this point and stuff, and I think a lot of them are still holding on then. I think it's why we find so many old ones like this is, of course, that one's a couple years old. It had been sitting there. But like that one there, he may have shed in
April, maybe.
Yeah, after we looked.
Yep.
You know. But that's possible. Then you get guys calling it a participation trophy. You heard that? You ain't heard that? On social media and stuff, you get people talking about, oh, shed antler, that's just a participation trophy for guys who can't kill big bucks.
Okay.
Have you heard that, Derek?
Yeah, I've heard it.
I enjoy it. The walking's good exercise, and the anticipation of what you might find. I enjoy the heck out of shed hunting. But you got to put a lot of effort into it to find them, though. I went out this last weekend and put a little over 10 miles in, and that's a lot of time actually, because you're not walking fast. You're walking slow and stopping. You're looking slow, stop, look.
Yeah.
And I found one little set.
Yeah.
In a little over 10 miles. So, and it was a match set. So that's, I was tickled.
Yeah.
But it gets better, though. As time goes on here, it gets closer to spring break, it gets better.
Yeah, those 10-mile days, it don't seem like I find as many. I seen one post on Facebook. Question was, how far do you guys walk? Average shed hunting day. And I seen comments. The most common comment was 20 miles. And I thought, they're not walking where we're walking.
No.
If you walk 20 miles in one day, you walk past a load.
Well, my 10 miles was split up in 3 different outings.
Right.
Yeah, now on Onyx, I keep track of how many miles you go. And there was 3 different outings. I walked a little over 10 miles and found that match set. So
I think if you walk 20 miles in one outing, where are you walking that you're seeing anything?
You're walking too fast. That's my opinion.
Wait, oh yeah. Unless you're, what are you, walking I don't know what you'd even be walking. It might have to be pretty near just dirt. You could see one real good on dirt. You could walk that fast probably.
I find more seems like when I stop and look.
I can't tell you.
Stop and look. That's when I found more.
I can't tell you how many times I've stopped and looked, like I might stop and be looking at something through my binoculars and, oh no, that's stick. And, kind of look around for a second and then, oh crap, there's one right there, 3 or 4 foot from you.
Yeah. Yeah, or about step on them. I've done that before.
Now, keep in mind that the majority of what we're shed hunting is thick timber. Correct? We're not, that set you found the other day was in a field.
Yeah, right. We're a little different here in this area we're at here than a lot of these folks are. It's got all this farmland. They're walking edges of these, these green fields, and we don't have a lot of that around here. We're looking in timber and up hills and hollers and stuff like that. It's just a little harder.
Not a whole lot of field around.
No, there ain't a whole lot. What we're looking at.
If you're finding them in sticks and old blackjack trees and bodarks and stuff like us,
it's easy to spot one out there in the middle of a green field. It's got real short, grass.
Some real short weed or something, yeah. It would be.
Yeah, compared to leaves or sticks and brush and everything else we're looking through. We're going through green briars. I'll get cut up. Sometimes the legs get all cut up and have scratches and pokes all over me. And
that's a participation trophy.
Yeah.
The scratches.
Sure.
All the scars and everything you take back.
I don't believe in that whole participation trophy thing, because to me, I'm scouting. I found
Same here.
that. I mean, of course, that buck, he's going to go right here, but the buck that I killed, I was just telling you about. It's a set of his sheds up there that I found after I'd shot him. I found the sheds from the year before, and where I was hunting there, I don't know how I missed his sheds. I think he probably shed in April. Like I said, after we'd done moved on to turkey hunting is when I think he shed, because I found 2 different match sets right where I was hunting there. And I had saved this spot. I knew, I'm thinking, this is the bed right here. And I'm like, I told Dad even before that, I'm going to kill a nice buck right there this year. I know I am.
Yeah.
I found those
Yeah, I remember you
sheds.
saying that.
And so that's where I'm thinking the participation trophy thing is, I'm scouting. I'm out there scouting. And I saved this spot where I found all those sheds, which they weren't his sheds, but there was 2 other nice bucks that had shed there. And anyhow, I was waiting until a perfect day. Cold front move in. It's cold and rainy, and make a move on this deer and walk. I walked. I think it's right at, what do we figure? It was a mile, almost 2 miles to that spot. Like 1.9
Close
miles
to 2 miles, yeah.
to that spot. Well, I had walked, I set my tracker, and it was just over 4 miles to get to that spot because of the way the wind was going. And I had walked way around this bedding area and come up on the downwind side of it, and pretty much no more than sat down and had a couple of fawns run by me and just hit that grunt call, and he come in there, nose up and stuff, and put smack down on him, and then blood trailing him, find those sheds, and didn't know it was even him. I thought I had shot the buck it was the other set of sheds I found is the one I thought I had shot, and then find him and like, holy crap, this is the sheds that I found. That's him, but anyhow, what I'm getting at is, you call it a participation trophy. I call it scouting.
Yeah.
I love finding the sheds. I get a good feeling out of it, and not only, I'm not always hunting the spot that I find the sheds. It's good to know if that deer was there, because especially on public, because you might not have him on camera and find the sheds. But not only that, but I'm looking while I'm out looking for sheds and stuff. February is, the best. You can still see all the scrapes and rubs, all of the deer sign from deer season is still there. I can still see where they were rutting in November. I can tell you, this spot would have been hot in November, and then 9 times out of 10 you can come back there next November and probably hot again. You know. It's good scouting. It's the perfect time to be out scouting.
Yep, for sure.
Not only scouting, but I just love seeing all the creation. I get tickled when I get out and see a little spring coming out of the side of the hill, or up in some of these management areas and stuff, we see some big old caves and rocks and stuff, or even some old foundations, and get sitting there thinking about, what the heck was this? What was here? The old jailhouse down there, it says 1920 something. In the middle of the woods. It's a jailhouse that 100 years ago there was some kind of community there.
It wasn't right in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, that was
right in the middle of town.
Right, exactly.
It's good exercise, and it's good to get out and see nature and stuff. And then if you find a shed, it's a bonus for you.
Yeah, it's a participation trophy for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like seeing. I just like seeing all the different terrains and looking new areas. Perfect time to scout new areas. You don't really want to be hunting a new spot. You know, October 31st, walking into. I say that it's good to. My first time in an area on a hunt, you always feel like it's gonna work out for you, and you see a lot of deer and stuff. First time stepping foot in somewhere, but I feel like you're better off if you've scouted it out before. You kind of have an idea where you're wanting to go in there. But
Yeah, and usually you don't find the match sets neither. Most of the time you just find one. I think I've got maybe 6 different match sets that I found over the years, and
yeah,
it's just.
Do you think you're walking past the other one? You
Well,
think you?
On public, I'm thinking a lot of times I think that maybe someone else has already picked it up, picked the other one up, or
I think somebody else walked past that one.
and somebody else walked past that one possibly, but like that one right there, we looked for the match for that one right there, and it just wasn't nowhere to be found. I mean, we spent lots of hours trying to find a match to that one there.
I probably put 100 miles looking for the other
I
side
really
of that
think
dude there.
somebody picked that one up already.
I think I put like 60 miles in that area before I found this one. That was the only shed I found. So I know it was combed through because that was the only shed I found. But I had shot that half rack buck there with my bow in December 10th. I shot that buck. And I think I put right at 60 miles looking for the other side, thinking he had broke off somewhere up in there. And I thought, I'm going to find the other side of that buck. And I put about 60 miles in before I found that shed. And then put another 100 miles in after I found that shed. And that was the only shed I found in that whole area. I put a lot of freaking miles in. There was a lot of Saturdays spent looking for that.
Yeah.
And you and Trey looking for it too. And
Yeah. Yeah.
But didn't find anything else in that little area. Of course, say 100 miles, but a 10-mile day, you might be within a 1 mile area, or even less than that, maybe zigzagging, walking around a tree and up and down the same hill, combing it over real tight.
Yeah, some days are better than other days. I like to look when there's overcast skies, and if the sun's out, you want the sun to your back, get that glare, and you can't see nothing hardly.
Yeah, you can't hardly have the sun in front of you, can you?
No, you gotta have sun to your back pretty much if the sun's out. So them overcast days are much better.
What about wind? You like it to be a little bit of wind, or you like it calmer?
I'd as soon it be calm.
Yeah.
I ain't much of the wind. Being out in the wind anyways, really.
Right.
So I like them calm days and
I wonder why that
skies.
is. But you're right. Overcast, a good cloudy day.
It's just better. It's like you can see better, and not the glare. You don't have that glare, the sun, when you turn in different directions, if you're zigzagging or whatever, and
That is
it's
strange.
just easier to find them. Of course, I look for stuff that's white, anyways, 'cause a lot of times they got a little white to them, especially the ones that have been sitting there for a year or so. Kind of white, so anything white, I'll
See, I do,
look at it,
but more I'm looking for straight lines.
Yeah.
I'm looking for shapes myself.
Yeah. Yep. Shapes and white.
Because I think the vast majority of them that I've found probably, I don't want to throw percentages out there and stuff because I ain't done the math, but I would guess probably 90% of them are tines up when you find them. They're sitting on the main beam like that, and the tines are pointing upwards. You don't seem to find a whole lot of them sitting like that, tines down. I don't know why that is. What do you think? You find them more like that, or?
I find them more tines up, like you said.
It's probably
Typically, they
just the
seem
way,
like they are.
the way it wants to set, huh? It falls off and it kind of tumbles a little
Yeah.
bit, or. But how many you think you walk past if you
Oh gosh, there ain't
find
no telling how many I've walked past within 50 yards of. There's no telling over the years.
yeah, especially in the thick timber.
Yeah.
If you find 3 sheds on an outing, do you think that you had your eyes on and those were the 3 that you come by, or do
I
you
think I walked past 3 more probably.
you think you walk past about it? You think you walk past about a shed per every shed you find?
Probably. 3 sheds on public land that's a good outing right there if you can find 3.
I wonder how many sheds the average hunter walks by.
I think I
During the hunting
done
season.
5 sheds one time, didn't I? I think on public ground I found 5 sheds once, and
Well,
that was probably maybe a little 5 or 6 mile walk probably.
Well, that's like you and I were talking a while ago. You know, I've pretty well hunted all of my life. Maybe not necessarily shed hunted, but I found one shed to my name that's 100% ODC found that one, you know. And
Right.
I mean, it was plugged nickel. It's something like this. I mean,
Right.
you know, it just.
Yeah, I've had guys.
My mom found a pretty decent one, you know, but
Yeah.
that was a long time ago.
I've had guys say that before. Yeah, I've been shed hunting my whole life. Hadn't found one yet.
But
As long as
goes
guys
back to-
have it. I mean, it's
you know, hunting private land, I'm gonna hunt or shed hunt the same little patch every year.
Yeah.
Not that that's wrong, but I never studied of when it's best to go and you know this and that, and I just not something I ever really took part in. I mean, if I found one, great, and if not,
yeah.
you
You,
know, every blind squirrel finds a
and,
nut now.
and you got to get them for the varmints. Eat them up too. They'll eat
Yeah.
them to just about nothing. As you can kind of see some of these here. You know, this eight to hardly nothing. You know, there's some of them.
That's kind of the race of time. You got to get. You have to wait till they've shed, but you've got to get out there before somebody else picks it up, or before the squirrels and rats find them. And I've seen trail camera pictures on Facebook and stuff, people posting of coyotes carrying them. I've seen that. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's a fluke deal that they got that on trail camera, if that happens, but I mean, you know that squirrels and stuff, that would have been a dang nice buck. He's got some mass to him and stuff.
Yeah.
Dad found this one on one of my youth hunts. That's one thing I can point out a shed antler, and I can tell you where it come from.
Boy, I
know,
can't.
Dad found
I
that one
couldn't
on
have told
one of
you.
my youth
I couldn't have told
hunts.
you I found that one right there. I
can tell
never
you-
would have.
I can
I
tell
would have
you
never
right
known
now,
it. I've got so many of them that.
the same day I got Drew in on a youth hunt, a little wildlife management area there, and
that was just a couple years ago, wasn't it?
let's see. That has been 14 years ago. 14 years ago, I found this shed. 14 years ago, that was my first shed that I ever found right there on the youth hunt, and it is all there. It was tucked down in the leaves. It barely had some tines sticking up. And you talk about tickle. And I didn't end up killing a deer on this youth hunt, but I found this one, and the same day Dad found this one, and I remember I was mad because when we got back, nobody cared about my shed that I found. That's a nice shed there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nobody cared about it because they was all so interested in how the squirrels had been chewing on Dad's. They'd never seen a shed antler had been chewed up like that. And they were all interested in Dad's shed antler. Nobody cared about mine. And me being a 12-year-old kid, and look at mine, look. I remember being upset about that. But it's a race, though. It's time sensitive on you like when the deer sheds. If you go out there before the deer shed, you're just pushing it out of that area. You got maybe a couple times. You might have a time or two that you can push that deer out and he's going to come back. Not saying that walking through there one time he's gone forever. But you can push the deer out of the area. There's no telling whether he's going to flee for good or what have you. But you got to get out there before, especially on the public. There's the other shed hunters. I think that's what gets the majority of them. But then you got to contend to the critters getting them too.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on them glasses that you see advertised all the time? It's supposed to help you find morel mushrooms.
Yeah, mushroom
and
shade.
shit. I'm a little skeptical about that.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm going to pay the money for a pair of them. I just don't see how that could really, do anything. I think it's a hoax. But
Well, me being colorblind,
I could be wrong, but
and I've talked to some other colorblind people and stuff, and I talked to Curtis, and his boy's colorblind, and Curtis said, tell me about their colorblind correction glasses that are prescribed to them and stuff.
yeah.
Okay. I can see that. How they put a tint or a shade over the glasses that fix your colorblindness. Okay, or corrects it or makes it to where you can see that tint or shade that you couldn't see before. I can see that being a thing. I don't have a pair myself, never tried them out. But antlers are kind of all different colors from each other. This is brown looking antler there. That's a white looking antler there. Some of them are really dark.
Chocolate looking, some are.
Yeah. They're all kind of different colors. And they're all kind of similar color to the sticks and stuff. Once they get more white like that, maybe the white ones, maybe there's a shade or something that you could see a sun bleached antler like that. Maybe there's some glasses that could make that more white looking stuff stand out to you a little bit better. But I don't know how does it make an antler like that it's the same color as all the wood and leaves out there.
Yeah.
So what is it making more visible to you?
Yeah, I can't see it working. But
Like you'd said a while ago about the glare, you're not wanting the sun for a glare. So I kind of thought about wearing the amber colored shooting glasses. If that wouldn't cutting that glare out on the sunny days,
yeah,
where it would be easier to see them laying there.
yeah, on a sunny day, a pair of glasses may benefit you.
My thing is, it's situational. Everything's situational. Everything is. Especially you're talking about deer hunting and wild animal. And anytime somebody tells me, oh, well, the deer's always will always do this, or always do that, or you always have to do this, I scratch that, because it's a wild animal.
Oh, yeah.
They have tendencies and stuff, but you can't say that a deer's always going to do this or always going to do that. It's a wild animal. But anyways, it's situational, same as deer hunting is. An antler might be laying on leaves. It could be in tall grass. It might be in a cornfield. It might be kind of tucked in the leaves. It might be sitting on some brush.
There's a few little things that might help too. Finding them is a lot of times they'll drop them when they jump a fence lines, little creeks and dips. Sometimes they'll drop them there, and
A fence line.
watering hose they're drinking that, and they bend their head down to get water. I mean, just there's a few little things that
That's what
when
I'm
looking. I look them spots over harder than I do other spots.
That's what I'm getting at, is if there's an antler on the edge of a pond in the mud and grass, and you design these glasses specifically for that antler right there, to where, okay, with these lenses on, I can see that better. It kind of stands out. That don't mean it's going to stand out when it's in a bunch of dead blackjack oak tree limbs and leaves and stuff. It don't mean that it's going to look the same, that same lens is going to help over there as it does right here on the edge of that pond.
Right.
It's situational, depending on where that antler falls at. But you're right, though, as far as if you're looking for antlers and stuff, edges is where you walk. The edge of a creek, a fence line is an edge for a deer. It's kind of a boundary. It's something that they have to physically cross at a certain spot, so that a lot of times walk down it and stuff. or they'll have a certain crossing spot. The edge of timber, or even just the timber switching from, this is a big mature timber that's pretty wide open, whereas there's a younger timber here, it's a little bit thicker. That's an edge, and deer walk those edges.
Yeah, and well-used trails too that's kind of beat down. I like to look them over too and follow them. Just follow a trail, follow it,
I found quite a bit on them, on trails. I think a lot of the trails that I'm, I don't find as many as I would think I would on them, but I think that's probably because if you're walking a well-defined trail on public land, somebody else is seeing that well-defined trail too.
And obviously, you're going to find where the bucks are at, where they're living at. If they're bedding in a certain area, and they're staying in the area, spending most of their time in that area, that's where you're going to find them at. But you have to find that area that they're living at, where they're at.
Yeah, just because
that's the hard part.
Just because you're seeing loads of rubs and scrapes, that don't mean that there's going to ever be a shed there, because that could be the bucks are there in November.
Yeah.
They're there during the rut when they're signing, October to December, whenever they're signing. Okay, I like to see that. Like I said earlier, we're scouting. I like to see where all that sign was and stuff for future hunts, but I'm not that concerned about it. As far as finding a shed, I'm looking for tracks and droppings.
Yep, exactly.
Because that tells me
fresh droppings. The deer, they're there. They're in that area.
Well, like I've heard you make the statement one time of not going where the deer were at, going where they've been, but going where the deer are at.
Yeah, yeah.
And that speaks volume to, just because you're seeing a scrape or a rub, doesn't mean that's where he's at. Just because
he's been
you
there.
See a boot track in the mud, doesn't mean that we were fishing there today. That might be a week-old track.
That's speaking towards that March time frame, because that's when I think he's shedding. So right now tomorrow's Valentine's. Okay, so I'm looking for where the deer are right now, because I'm trying to get those early drop sheds. So I'm trying to jump deer. I think, I'm chasing that buck right now and thinking, okay, wherever he's bedding right now or wherever he's feeding right now, if he shed recently, then that's where his shed's going to be. I don't care where he was at in October whenever he made that rub. He's getting fired up for the rut. I do care about that because I'm scouting that. I like to kind of take note of that for next deer season.
So another thing that comes to mind for me is you'll hear people, feeding corn from, maybe September to into December. We'll say just those people. I wonder if it wouldn't be better odds to keeping a feeder out year round, where that buck is visiting that feeder, coming in and eating. Maybe like a gravity feeder, he's reaching up there and he bumps it on the feeder.
Oh yeah.
Or like I've heard and seen some stuff on social media and stuff where they'll take two trees that are fairly close together and wrap them in chicken wire and then pour corn in between that. So when that buck comes up there to eat the corn, he's tangling his antler in that chicken wire.
See, just kind of break that down a little bit. That's a lot for me. But the beginning of that, you're talking about feeding year round.
Yeah.
100%. If you can afford to have a good food source, which I don't know that a corn pile is a good food source. It's attractive to them, but if 100%, if you can have a good food source for that buck on your property, 365 days a year, you're increasing your odds for hunting or shed hunting. Even you're increasing your odds he's going to shed there too if you're feeding all through the shed season,
right?
I call it. But as far as the the trap thing goes, like a shed trap, I personally think if you have, let's say, a strand of barbed wire, that's fine and dandy. Okay, if you're feeding under a couple logs, or you got something stood up where he could bump his antlers or something. But I think that it's not like a loose tooth. Like it's the way that pedicle kind of dissolves is different than a tooth is just detaching from the skin there, like I think that when that antler's ready, it's going to fall, and maybe a little bump is all right, but a chicken wire kind of thing where he's kind of, I don't like the idea of him getting his antler in there and him pulling on it.
Fighting it.
And it's in his, maybe he's 2 or 3 days out from actually being ready to shed, and it's caused him to have any kind of damage to that pedicle, even no matter how minor that might be. I'm more concerned about the deer, killing that deer the next fall or a couple years from now than I am finding that shed myself. So I'm totally cool with feeding in between some T-posts and throwing a strand or two of barbed wire around it, because he's not getting caught up in that and tugging at that antler.
Yeah.
But I've seen some of the chicken wire traps you're talking about and stuff, but I think there's a case for hurting him on that, personally. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there is or not, but your bigger bucks and stuff, though, like something that's got a little bit of main beam like that, I mean, he's bending down, and you can't tell me that he's not. If he's eating off the ground, you can't tell me his beams ain't touching the dirt at some point, and even just whenever he picks that old head up and whips back to see who's coming up behind him, it's a pretty jarring movement, bouncing his head around and stuff. But 100%, like you're saying, if you can have food for him there year round, you're going to increase your odds of him shedding on your property, because you're increasing your odds of him being on your property. I mean, that just adds up. Where do you like to look, Dad? If you're looking for sheds?
Well, I like to look, on flat ground. Really, it's easiest on, winter wheat, flat ground. That's where I like to look. But we don't have a whole lot of that, really. But
is that
what we look at? But
okay, but all right. Well, we're not Midwestern here. We're hollers and hills. So on our publics, for the people that can relate, the Ozarks and even down south, Talamina, and the people in our area, maybe even the people out down in,
when I'm in the hills
Tennessee,
and hollers looking, I try to look on the south facing slopes. That's what I try to do.
Right.
I'll just do a lay on the south facing slopes and in the sun and stuff, when on colder days and stuff, and that's where they like to lay at. You find more on the south facing slopes than you do the north.
Okay, so say you got just a regular holler, 80 to 100 foot elevation change, just a regular holler, south facing slope. It's a ridge running through there. Are you up top? Are you maybe halfway down? Or are you towards the top?
I'm closer to the top, but not on the very top. That's where I like to walk at. I mean, I don't know why that is. You'll see the heavier beat down trail closer to the top of a ridge.
And you see beds,
not the very top. Yeah, and see beds too. Just I don't know why it is about it, but like they run them.
I think the bottoms you can find them too, though.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times
you
they'll use bottoms just for traveling. or wherever the food's at. I think the majority of, some of the best days I've had shed hunting were shed hunting in boat arcs, surround your horse apples and stuff, and you'll see that. Growing up, I always heard, "Oh, nothing touches them horse apples. They'll sit there and rot." Nothing, but stuff touches them. They
Once
eat
they
them.
rot,
Once
start
they get
rotting and get really soft, that's when stuff eats them.
they're hard as a rock whenever they fall. For anybody that don't know what a horse apple is, it comes from a boat arc tree, and it looks like a brain. It's a ball that's maybe not quite as big as a cantaloupe, about the size of a grapefruit or something, maybe.
Yeah, like a grapefruit.
And it looks like a green brain, is what it looks like, don't it? But they're hard as a rock when they fall, but whenever they soften up, a lot of times you'll see that the tops are just kind of ate off of them. And I found a lot of sheds in the boat arc trees. And typically, I think your boat arcs, I'm assuming from where them horse apples, whatever they're called, that's what we've always called them, was horse apple. Maybe where they fall and kind of rot and get ate up and stuff.
Hedge
but you
apple
don't,
or something like that, I think.
You don't ever see a whole lot of brush and tall grass and stuff around the horse apple or around the boat arc trees, do you? So that could be a lot of why I found them there. Is easier to see.
Yeah, easier to see, easier to spot when the grass is short. Same thing in the, in the pine trees. They're easier to spot when they're laying on pine needles because there's nothing else. There's no grass and.
Yeah, I think you're looking food sources and bedding areas. A lot of times I find sheds where it's just so thick you can't walk through it. Whether that's because other hunters ain't walking through there or just because of deer bedding in there. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're bedding that thick stuff a lot.
It's probably both, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and like you said earlier, slow down. If you got a 20-mile day, you're at, it's lunchtime and you're on X tracker showing 20 miles and
I think you're walking too fast.
You walk past some antlers, I guarantee you walk. I don't care if you're all eagle eyes, I think slow down, but what would you say? Okay, guy like Derek, you obviously just would consider yourself a beginner to the shed hunting, right?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, well,
but I'm a veteran at hunting a dinner table.
Right.
Yeah.
You never really been out in the spring looking for them.
No.
Just decide, hey, I'm gonna go out and walk.
Yeah.
Look for, okay. So
and not to cut you off here, but the one I found last year, I was actually riding a mule. I was muleback.
Total accident.
On the back of the original full-wheel drive whenever I found it, and probably was.
The original
but you guys are preaching to slow down, and anybody that knows anything about a mule, we don't have a slow pace. We'll cover three times as much real estate as we will on a horse. Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
No, I'm just asking to somebody that would consider himself a beginner or somebody that's wanting to get into shed hunting, what would you tell them?
Get a good pair of boots. and put the miles down, but take your time and go slow and look.
Right.
Look out there, 15, 20 feet in front of you. Don't try to look way off over there. Try to look up close, 15 or 20 feet out there, because you're probably not going to see them out there, 50 yards anyway. You're not going to see them.
So look closer, get a good pair of boots, and keep your eyes closer to your boots.
Now if you're in a green, winter wheat or something like that, short winter wheat, you obviously you can see out there farther, see something out there farther. But in the timber and stuff, look close, 15, 20 feet.
I had spotted them, I spotted a couple, not very many, but I had spotted a couple, 20, 25 yards. I'm like, oh, look at that,
Yeah.
But the vast majority, this is one of them. I was probably 20 yards from that thing.
And-
But it was in pine needles. And it's sticking tines up. And I thought, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me, you know. That's
you're not going to find something
90-inch
every,
shed. but-
Every time you go out, you're not going to find something. You're just probably not.
Yeah.
I might find something every third time I go out. I may go out 2 times and don't find nothing. The third time I might find 1 or 2 or 3 or, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get lucky, like I did one day and found 5. So I mean,
Another thing I would say is get you some kind of mapping app or some way of finding public lands and stuff. And
yeah, get you on X or what's the other one that's real popular?
there's a few of them. There's
On your phone, so you kind of know where you been, where you ain't been, and how many miles you put down, and all that.
yeah, and just
You know, and
Put
that's
the
another
miles
thing
on.
too. Is like I've got 2 total different terrains to shed hunt. I mean, there at my house, we've got a creek back there, you know, and it just got you know, we'll say mature timber on it, and I mean it's got a little grass. Well, then you go to my mom and dad's house, and it's, you know, greenbriers out the wazoo,
yeah,
and leaves and underbrush everywhere. You know, I mean, like it's kind of a joke that if at my mom and dad's house, my folks' house, if you pull a 20-yard shot, you're really somebody. You know,
Right.
It just,
yeah.
I mean, you just don't have a whole lot of open windows like that.
I think if you're looking for antlers, though, it obviously it's different looking in different spots, but it doesn't matter what terrain you got or what vegetation you have. What matters is if the deer are there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the simple fact of the matter is that there's going to be a few seconds where the antlers fall off, which they could carry one for a little while before the other one falls, but there's a split second that antler falls off, and you have to know where he was at that split second.
Right.
That's where that antler's going to be, unless something carries
And
it.
obviously, you're walking through the woods, you're not seeing really no deer sign. You can kind of tell them areas that look like, hey, it don't really look good. There's no trails through here. You know, it's just all leaves, and you know, just don't look deery or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And then, you know, when I get in the areas that really look good, and you see in droppings and, you know, old scrapes and stuff like that, that's where I slow down even more and take my time a little more and look them areas over a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think. Some of my best days are like a 4 to 6 mile day where I was on them and just walking slow and found a few, you know. But it seems like whenever those days that I've walked more than 10 miles, the majority of that I was high stepping it because I'm like, I don't really think there's going to be an antler here, and I probably and there might have been. I walked past them, but you know, that's why I had more miles on the day, is walking through some of that junk area, I would call it, you know.
So you kind of use the term a day, and you've said 4 to 6 miles in one deal, and then upper part of 10. So are you calling a day a work day in 8 hours? I mean, that you're kind of out.
I'm calling it. We work. I mean, we're working class. We, you know, work a 40, 50 hour shift every week, and I wish I worked a 50 hour shift every year, man. I'm trying to get on that. No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put in 45 this week. You know, on 5 days. I'm working half a day tomorrow. Well, I would call that a day if I work till lunch on a Friday, and that's overtime, a little bit of overtime there, and then go out after lunch and walk 3 or 4 miles that evening, you know.
Yeah.
That'd be what I call a day. Or if I went out on a Saturday and got up early on a Saturday. Me and Dad, a lot of times, we'll get up early on a Saturday and go somewhere, and we'll just part ways and go walk until I don't know, 1 or 2 o'clock.
1 or 2 o'clock, you know.
That's when you get about pretty hungry, and you think,
yeah.
it's whenever I'm like, well, Dad, you about ready to head out? And he's like, I've been sitting in the truck for 15 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I'm almost there.
You know, in them days like that, you'll put 5 or 6 miles down like that, you know. And it's not from daylight to dark type deal. It's just,
Right.
you know, 5 or 6 miles in probably 4 hours. Or
That's what I'm
maybe
saying
something
is
like
on
that.
a day like that, we're out of there to go get our first meal might be 1 or 2 o'clock. And
Right.
if I've walked 10 or 12 miles, then I didn't have a very good day because I was high stepping through some country that I was like, they're just not here. You know, typically it's like that day you've walked 4 miles and come out with a few.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, that was a good day. But
Kind of doing a grid search pattern, or are you doing more just straight lines, just kind of?
man, it
Just whatever
depends.
comes to mind for you, you know. Taylor's got that dog he takes with him, and,
Yeah.
and sometimes he'll go the direction the dog kind of wants to go.
I will, yeah. I got Rip, and really, Rip's just a family dog. He's a 100% family dog. He sleeps in the bed with me. You know,
That's
he's
cute.
a black lab, and that's what I mean. I don't care that he ever finds one, and the majority of the time, always I find the shed, and I'll have him pick it up. You know, but I just like him going with me because we're not walking
Companionship,
side by side with somebody. I'm just taking the dog with me. I like to roll with him. If I'm walking down a trail and it comes to a Y, and I'll just give him the command, Rip, get shed. And whichever direction he goes, I'm like, okay, well, we'll go that way. You know, I'll let him choose which way we're going. But majority of the time, we've picked a spot on the map where we're going to go, hey, we're going to go over here.
Yeah.
And you kind of have a game plan going into that. You might get there and look at, start walking a little bit, and you get a mile in or a half mile in or whatever, and you're like, this really ain't what I thought it was going to be. And scratch it and go a completely different way. If you get into a good spot, you walk in, and right there you find a shed. Then you start. Then it might turn into a grid search.
Yeah.
Where you're zigzagging back and forth. But I spent some days zigzagging a piece. Okay, one day in particular that comes to mind, I found 2 antlers, and I could point them out to you too. And there was this chunk of public here that is a kind of a corner of this bigger chunk, and I spent a day zigzagging this chunk from this fence line here that runs east and west, and I was walking north and south zigzagging this, and I walked the entire thing out, and I found 2 sheds. And if I had just walked that fence line around that L, because there was one on the north fence line and there was one on the east fence line, and if I had just walked that fence line out in 20 minutes, I would have found both of those sheds. And I spent an entire day grid searching that area, and you just kind of learn from that, I guess. I could have walked past one. I'm not afraid to admit that. I'll probably walk past a lot.
I probably walked by a bunch of them.
But you just kind of learn that, and I guess the best answer to that is we get a rough plan of where we're going to go look, and we get out there and we follow the sign. Essentially, we get on the tracks and stuff. If I come up to any kind of water source, I'm looking in the mud for tracks, see if the deer are really hitting this spot or not.
Yeah.
Creek crossings, stuff like that. But I got a question for you. What do you think's harder to find? An old big shed like that? Is that harder to find? That's easy to see, but they're few and far between. There's just not really that many of them out there. It's a 14-point antler there. Or a little shed like this that there's loads of these bucks out there. There's a lot of these sheds out there, but it's hard to see. Which one would you say is harder to find?
I'd say that little one's much harder to find.
You think that's hard to find?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, but what about the land? The amount of land there is of that acreage. There was probably 2 of this antler. This one and the left side that I didn't find. But of that acreage, there was probably 50 of this antler. There's probably at least 25 or heck, maybe 100 of these little bucks running around there. There's a lot more of these out there. I've been lucky enough to find a few of them, but
I don't know. It's hard to say, really.
I mean, this is obviously harder to see.
Yeah,
Out
definitely
in the
harder
woods,
to
that's
see.
a lot harder to see something like that. This one I found in some cedars and cactuses and stuff. That one there, you were with me on that. We were walking through it was, freshly brush hogged down short. And I just no more than told Dad, this is how it went. Me, Dad, and Trey walking side by side. And I said, well, it'd be really easy to see one in this short stuff. Like that one right there. Pick that thing up. I don't know. Oh, one other thing. I seen this post. I want to tell you about this. I took a screenshot of this. This I found really interesting. This was on Facebook. It's got a little tag here. My bad. I stuttered there, kind of. National Deer Association posted this. And it's saying, how far away is the other antler? Obviously, the majority of deer have 2 antlers. So they drop one, they drop 2. Or they drop first one, drop the second one. So how far apart do you think the average antler is?
Most of the time, I bet you it's within 100 yards.
Okay.
50% of the time, I bet it's 100 yards. But you may not find it.
It makes you wonder if they could carry one for a couple of days.
I think so.
Or if they're going to shed within, minutes of each of them, majority of the time.
I just always felt like the deer that had the bigger antlers, if they shed one, they're likely to shed the other one real close.
With the
more likely than the deer that's got small antlers.
You're talking a bigger antlered buck.
Yeah, I think it would. You'd think it would feel different on his head. He's used to having 2 up here, and one falls off, then I think he'll shake the other one off.
Okay, so you're saying, right? So basically, this buck sheds this antler, this little bitty spike antler here. He sheds that. He could carry the other spike
for a few days, I think,
without realizing that's there.
Without it really bothering him, I think. But
I could see that, but I could also see it just depending on how loose they get, how fast that pedicle.
Yeah.
How symmetrical their pedicles dissolve for them to fall off. But I can see what you're saying, that a much larger antler is going to, if he loses one, then his head's going to feel lopsided. Feel like he's wearing his helmet on the side of his head.
Right, yeah.
And he's going to try and shake that other side off.
And this is kind of similar as far as knocking their equilibrium off. But we had raised a Hereford bull one time, and when he was about a 2-year-old, we put horn weights on his horns because they were growing straight out. He was kind of a little bit aggressive on the feed. We put these horn weights on. Well, they're a pound a piece.
Right.
And they just kind of screw on anyway. We let him out of this squeeze chute, and he walks out and falls down on his knees like he's dying, and just 2 pounds on a bull's head had knocked his equilibrium off so bad. First 2 or 3 steps he takes, and he falls to his knees.
Really?
So I kind of think that on something like that, yeah, they may shake them, but I feel like an antler that size will fall quicker because it's heavier.
That's what I would think. I would think that too.
That pinnacle or pedicle or whatever you're calling it, is just, you know what I mean? It's kind of, maybe it doesn't take as much to get it to fall off as.
I can see that, especially an antler like that one there. That's technically it's 5-point side, but That's it. That antler's 79 inches, and that thing, that's at least 4 pounds.
That dude's heavy, yeah.
That's a heavy antler right there. That has almost a 28-inch main beam. I mean, that dude's heavy. He loses that one side. He's lopsided, right?
I donated that one to the man cave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I acquired that one. Anyways, I want to get back to this post by National Deer Association. This is what they found. They found 113 match sets of sheds. So 113 pairs from 113 bucks. Okay. And this is it says the source is from the University of Nebraska at Kearney, which is funny that our last name's Kearney. I've been to Kearney, Nebraska a couple times too, but it's spelled Kearney. But they say it on the radio Kearney, just like we say our last name. That's besides the point. Okay, 113 bucks. Match sets sheds. They found all of these. Okay, 56. Which is almost exactly 50% of those 113 bucks. 56 of them, the sheds were found within 10 meters of each other, or within 10 yards of each other. Almost half of them shed within 10 yards of each other. This is all going to be relative of areas, where they're at, how far that buck's moving in an average day. So I don't know how far these bucks were traveling, but this is what the University of Nebraska come up with on these deer. They had 27 match sets found from 10 to 100 yards of each other. Uh-oh. Might be cutting them off.
Attention, locust, throw fire.
Okay, so we had to leave in a hurry the other night, so I'm back in here to kind of finish up what I was talking about there at the end, because I felt like it was pretty important. So it was a study from University of Nebraska, and they found 113 match sets of sheds, and they did the math on all of them, and 56 of that 113 match sets, so that's almost exactly 50% of them. So 56 of the sets were within 10 yards of each other. Then 27 of the sets were from 10 yards to 100 yards of each other. And 23 were 100 to 500 yards, and 7 sets were over 500 yards of each other. So obviously they're in a pretty big area if there's 113 match sets of sheds. I don't know if this was a farm or something, but either way, if the sets were able to be 500 yards apart, then it's a pretty big chunk of land. The greatest distance between match sets of sheds was 1,251 yards. 1,200 yards apart. That's nearing a mile. So, but half of them, 56 of them, half of the pairs were found within 10 yards of each other, which is crazy to me, because you would think that a deer can carry a set of sheds for. I mean, you see loads of pictures from trail cameras and stuff of a deer will have, one antler he's carrying around. So apparently they, maybe they just aren't traveling very far. So if a pair of sheds that's found 10 yards from each other, they could have been shed 48 hours apart. He could have dropped one and 2 days later dropped the other one, and just so happened that he was only 10 yards from where he dropped the one 2 days before. I mean, so there's no certainty to that, but that is crazy to think that 50% of the match sets on that particular study were found within 10 yards of each other. And of course, I think that will change depending on where you're at. I think, the Midwest is far different from the South, and that's far different from the West. And we're here in Oklahoma. We kind of have a mixture of everything. So we're kind of, our part's hollers and hills and briars and stuff. But I think it'll change depending on where you're located at. As far as deer shedding and what time of year they even shed is going to depend on how far south you are or how far north you are. It's going to make a difference on when they shed. I think farther south they'll carry their antlers longer typically, and because the rut's typically later farther south too. So I think farther north a lot of times you'll get earlier sheds. But anyways, kind of cap this off. Just remember, get on some kind of mapping software. Google Maps. I don't care. If you can figure out how to, if it's public land or what have you. But I mean, if you know of some public land that you're wanting to look on, or if you have your own tract of private that you're wanting to shed hunt, but then the point is finding your piece of land to look for. You've got to find your piece of land that you can look for sheds on. And once you've got that, then it's just a matter of putting on miles. Get out there and walk. You can't find them if you're not looking for them. You got to put miles on. Don't get out there and run. If you're going running trails and stuff, odds are you're running right by sheds. We all know what deer antlers look like, and you think that they're not that hard to see, but they are. You see, they're laying in sticks and leaves and stuff, and they're the color of sticks and leaves and stuff, and they're kind of shaped like sticks a little bit, and they're not easy to see. They really aren't that easy to see. So you got to slow down, take your time, get out there, put miles on, slow miles, keep your eyes open. I've even heard of guys taking an antler and throwing out whenever they get out of the truck, and kind of looking at it, circling it, looking at it from all angles to kind of get their shed antler eyes on, and kind of help, getting that rhythm of seeing them, show you what an antler looks like, where you're in the area that you're looking at there. But put miles on, slow down. I mean, that's it. Just you find one, I would say circle. Make circles after you find one. Look that area over hard. If there's one shed there, a lot of times there's another. Whenever I find one fresh shed, those are days that you might find 4 or 5 fresh sheds if you sit there and just circle and circle. So look that area over real good. If you know where the deer are, look for sign. Fresh sign, not rut sign. You can, like I said, I like looking for rut sign for, furthering my knowledge for next deer season where I'm going to hunt. But when I'm looking for sheds, I'm really after rut sign. Scratch that. I'm really after fresh sign. I'm looking for fresh drop-ins or tracks. You get a little bit of mud and you see some fresh tracks, some big old buck tracks, then he's there. If he's got some fresh drop-ins there, then wherever you're at there, that's what he's eating. If you get on his food source, food to bed. That's all they're doing this, late in the winter, early in the spring. They're eating and sleeping. That's it. So get on the sign and slow down. Anyways, that's about all we got here. We'll cap this off. So if anybody's stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe, and get out there and find you some sheds. What do you think, Rip? Huh? What do you think about it, buddy? Tell them all like and subscribe. Tell them to like and subscribe, buddy. All right. Thank y'all. Like and subscribe.